I got enough information here to talk all night, but I only got 3 minutes. Well, hey, Lumen only gives me 2, so hey.
I had to do that.
Hey, I appreciate it, brother. You know, Santa Rosa County, they give you 4 minutes, so I always bring more, and I send it in writing to the commissioners. But anyway, I'm a graduate of Auburn University. I grew up in Selma, Alabama. I have a civil engineering degree. Give you a little bit about my story. And there's a story in itself on how I ended up in Pensacola, but I've been here about 30 years. 25 years I worked for Escambia County Engineering Department. Stormwater that's my life. That's my passion. And right after Hurricane Sally, well, no longer employed with Escambia County. I won't really go into that, but because now I'm doing advocacy work with flood defenders. And we're helping citizens influence our government to fix problems with drainage. I cover the whole panhandle, but really I work with the city of Pensacola, Escambia County, Santa Rosa County, and city of Milton, but mainly Escambia and Santa Rosa counties. We're 2,900 voters right now on our Facebook page, Flood Defenders-Panhandle. But it's not me. You know, our Constitution says we the people. It doesn't say me the people. And what Gene said earlier, and Mike, is it's all about the people getting up and speaking. I don't go out to neighborhoods and ask them to come to board meetings. They come to me and I'm like, hey, you want help? This is how you do it. I provide shirts. There's some signs over here, these flood defender shirts. And I just guide them to the commissioners. Go to public meetings, go to town hall meetings. That's how it works. You know, I'm free. Only cost is your voice. That's it. Your time and your voice. And that's the way our government's set up. It takes the people to get together, come to the board meetings, and I'm going to tell you about a few of these neighborhoods. You know, our goal is flood readiness. A couple of those neighborhoods are here. Flood Defenders is actually a spinoff from the American Flood Coalition. Commissioner Culler, I think the American Flood Coalition is something you might want to join up. My boss, he's the chairman of the American Flood Coalition. I believe Bender is a member of the American Flood Coalition as well. A lot of good information, a lot of good work. My boss is the chairman, and he founded Flood Defenders in Horry, South Carolina initially about 4 years ago. And a couple of years ago, he called me up and wanted to found it here in the Panhandle. We're the local pressure. And when I say pressure, I don't want to say that in a negative light. We're the voice to get flooding a priority. I mean, Commissioner Bergosh said it after one September storm. He said flooding is the #1 priority. Excuse me, I got it wrong. The #1 problem. It needs to be the #1 priority. And I do understand the government's got a lot of things on their plate, a whole lot of things on their plate. I just don't think that flooding is a high enough priority, maybe because that's my heart. You know, we get the highest annual rainfall in the nation, but we're the lowest priority when it comes to funding. We really are. I'll give you some examples of that, but Brett D. Radelsky, did I say that right again? Radelsky. Windrose Subdivision. She's been beating the drum, I tell you what. And the county's singing the tune now. There are several projects going on in her neighborhood, Windrose neighborhood right now. They're in design, but she's been to 20 meetings. So I think 17, 18 of them were Board of County Commissioners meetings. She got her neighborhood together and brought neighbors with her. Rick and Pam Weirich, sitting right here, they had a little problem with development. County's still working on their issues, but they have done some maintenance out there. This Beach Haven community, there's a project right now on the books, Beach Haven Northeast, Phase 2, right on the other side of Fairfield, or Fairfield Drive, north of Gulf Beach Highway. I do know that the project is being redesigned and rebid. I know there's been a little history with that. I won't go into the difficulties of that, but I'm pretty sure Mike's going to get that off the ground. Well, speaking of Beach Haven, the Beach Haven community in 2003, the county, through our CRA district, did a master drainage and sewer plan. I took that plan when I became Stormwater Engineering Manager, and I says, well, hey, I was given money out of local option sales tax to come up with a plan of which projects need to start. We started on Phase 1. That was a $10 million project, 5 different funding sources. The next phase, I believe, has about 5 different funding sources. The phase after that is Beach Haven West. I took 12 phases and combined it in, basically made it into 3. Beach Haven Northeast, Beach Haven Northwest, and Beach Haven South. Well, Beach Haven South fits into the Navy Point area. I can talk more about all that, but there's a little bit of pocket change in LOST for all these different phases, but it's not enough. And that's one of the biggest problems is the county doesn't invest in drainage. I mean, Santa Rosa County has a grants department, and that's all they do is go out and get grants. Now, grants take money to match to get those grants. They take staff that know what they're doing to get those grants. County does it a little bit different over here in Escambia County. Each department goes out and gets their grants. And I've worked in engineering. I did, let's see, HMGP, NRCS. There were several different grant programs that we worked. But what it boils down to is we, the people, going to our Board of County Commissioners meetings and telling them what's up. Hey, we want a project. We need a project. You need to make it a priority. That's the investment part of it. There's a plan part of it. The county's got a plan. It was a plan that came out after April 2014 flood event where we had 22 to 26 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. That was a major storm. There was damage all over the place. Escambia County's had $300 million in property damage. Hundreds of residents have been forced out of their homes. Escambia County's had 2 100-year storm events and 1 500-year storm events in the last 12 years. We only designed to a 100-year storm event, and that wasn't even until after the April 2014 event. In 2015, we went from a 25-year design storm to a 100-year design storm. What is a design storm? 2,500. All it means is 1 in 100, 1% chance. 1 in 25 is a 4% chance. 1 in 500, that's a 0.2% chance. Maybe we should be going to a 500-year design. I've actually recommended that for stormwater ponds that don't have outfalls. Guess what? We're still using 1960s rainfall data. Do y'all understand that? It's obsolete. DOT, our state public highway department, pushes this. And we have a federal government that has an agency called NOAA. And they have data out that it goes back to 2012. A 100-year, 24-hour storm is 13.44 inches according to DOT. Guess how much it is right here in Pensacola area, south end of Pensacola? It's 2.76 inches more. It's actually 16 point, I think it's 24. Yeah, 16.2. In the north end of the county, it's 2 inches more for a 100-year, 24-hour storm. That doesn't really, you think, oh, that's only 2 inches of water. Well, when you put it over thousands of acres, that's a lot of water. That's a whole lot of water. And we're designing drainage systems that as soon as they're built, they fail. You know, the county is listening. Santa Rosa County and Escambia County both are listening to some of the things that I'm bringing. Now, it's not me. I'm bringing you the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are coming up and speaking as we, the people. That's your micro part of flood defenders. That's telling you why we're having problems. These are the repercussions of not having a good plan, not investing, not protecting people with good codes, and not maintaining what we have, not making flooding a priority. And that's what we, the people, that's what we flood defenders are trying to do, is we're trying to change that with our local governments. Now, I only work at a municipal base, but there's a lot of stuff going on. And a lot of it's being pushed through the American Flood Coalition at your state and federal level. You know, back in the 1980s, you know, there wasn't a lot of flood damage. But since the 1980s, the U.S. taxpayers spent $1 trillion in flood damages. More than $850 billion since 2000. And 2/3 of that cost is responsible for natural disasters. That's a lot of money. We ain't doing something right. And that's not just the panhandle. I told you about Escambia County suffering $300 million in property damages. Do you realize the 100-year flood event, which we're still using obsolete rainfall data, 1% chance? We've been designing, most have been designing using 100-year storm events since 1973. 50% of the houses that flood are not even in the 100-year floodplain. What is that telling you? We're still not doing something right. There was an article in Panama City News Herald about Hurricane Ivan. Most powerful storm to hit the U.S. It was almost a Category 5. 2.6 million residents were out of power, 12.6 billion in insured losses, more than 20 inches of rain over 20 counties. Now remember, I told you 13.44 inches here is a 100-year storm. We had 20 inches of rain across 20 counties, or 10 counties. 144 people died. Now, why do I tell you that? It didn't affect the panhandle, but it did affect the panhandle. You know how it affected the panhandle? Insurance. Do you know that our legislation has put $3 billion in 2022 to subsidize the insurance companies so they can keep them here?
As they're making record profits every year.
No, they're not. See, that's the thing. People think they are. You know, they're out of the 8 insurance companies that have entered into receivership in Florida, they haven't showed a profit since 2016. Now, what does that tell you? It means high risk means high cost. Low risk is low cost. Well, how do you change the risk? Well, flooding is one of the ways you change the risk. If you're not flooding, you're not paying out those insurance claims. You realize that one of the things that the federal government has, they have the FEMA. They have a community rating system that deals with insurance. That community rating system sets up costs where if your community reduces and avoids flood damages to insured property, strengthens and supports insurance aspects of the National Flood Insurance Program, and fosters comprehensive flood management, then you can get insurance rates reduced. That's a program. It's called the Community Rating System. I think FEMA's still broke, though. You know, it's been 50 years since they changed how they do flood insurance. FEMA came out with something called the Rate Risk 2.0. Hadn't changed how they did insurance premiums for flood insurance in 50 years. They're starting to do that. There's national coalitions that are filing petitions with FEMA on how they're doing business. Got some real good news on a federal level, though. It's called the precipitation. I'm going to tell you what that stands for. Provide Research and Estimates of Change in Precipitation Act. And then there's another one called floods. Flood level, observation, operations, and decision support. Flood Act. Congress just passed that in December. I actually have a meeting tomorrow through the American Society of Civil Engineers, so I'm going to find out a little bit more about that. You know how that got passed? The American Flood Coalition was pushing it. They were pushing it at a congressional level. I could talk all night long, but I know you got Glenn is going to tell you about oysters and our water quality problems. And I will tell you something about flood defenders. We are an advocacy group for flooding. Now, we are not an environmentalist group. We're not wetland guardians. We're not tree preservation. But all that counts. You know, water quality, sediments gets into our natural resource conservation. All that gets into our stormwater, and it messes up our waterways and our wetlands. So that's important. Wetland management and restoring hydrological functions and removing debris. The county's doing a project right now in windrows to remove some of the debris that's in a wetland. Now, we have wetland conservation and we have wetland protection. What about wetland management? You know, that's a big problem. We have all these wetlands out here that years and years of hurricanes have dumped garbage in them. And then we have developments that encroach in those wetlands, and then we don't have land development codes that protect those wetlands and have a management plan and put them into conservation. That's a big problem too. That's all part of flooding, but we're not wetland guardians. We're just trying to tell you what needs to be done from a flooding perspective. Tree preservation. That's an important aspect. I mean, trees soak up tons of water. When you go out and clear cut acres and acres of land, the water runs off a lot faster, and it takes sediments that destroy our wetlands. You know, so flood defenders is a lot bigger than just flooding. We're a real small nonprofit organization right now, and we're nonpartisan. I just need the help of our community, and that's what it's about. You can't say community without unity. I don't go out to neighborhoods and say, hey, we got to get together. We got to go to the Board of County Commissioners meetings. People call me. I don't know why they call me. Maybe my boss man told me, he says, you're a public figure. I don't know how that happened. I really don't, because I've been doing stormwater engineering for 25 years, actually 28. Huh? Credibility. Actually, Gene, I'm going to tell you why I'm called. It's the good Lord above. You know, my dad died in 2007. And I said a prayer once. I said, you know, the church, when the funeral went on, the church was slap full of people. There were people, every single spot, every pew was full, and every aisle was full. They were standing in the aisles. And I said a prayer. It was about right before I got fired from the county. I said a prayer. I said, Lord, you know, I want to be like my dad. I want to be able to help many, many people. And I'm helping a lot more people now. That's my story. So I just need the help of the community to come to board meetings and tell them what's up. I mean, I can give you the background. I can give you concept plans on drainage. Beach Haven has a master drainage plan, a master sanitary sewer wastewater plan for this whole entire community. But one voice going to the Board of County Commissioners, they not listening to one guy. When you bring about 20 people, they listen. There's a community that Gene Brown runs a community, JoJo, Finley, Wood Run subdivision. And that's a big stormwater problem area. Gene, she got her neighborhood together. They called me up and said, hey, can you come tell us about stormwater? And their issues is not all stormwater, but a big part of it is. Well, just at the DRC meeting, I think it was on the 11th, county staff denied the preliminary plat. You know, the developer still has 15 days to protest it, and then it goes into legal stuff. But, I mean, Gene Brown showed up to the professional advisory committee meeting this morning. She was supporting flood defenders because she thought they were going to be revising some codes. Well, and I thought there were too, but the professional advisory committee deals with development standard manual, technical stuff like using obsolete rainfall data. They're going to try to change that. Actually, Escambia County is doing real good. They're requesting that engineering firms use the NOAA Atlas 14 data. But guess what? Until it is in land development code, they can't require it. All they can do is request it. And engineers like the engineer for Outpost Rental can go, I don't have to meet that requirement because your code doesn't require it. So, but does anybody have any questions? I mean, I can talk all night, you know, and I got more stuff here if you want to hear it.
Chris, I'd just like to make one comment from the county. So one of the first meetings I went to, we had legislative priorities.
Right.
And so obviously I was like, I want to do the jail, I want to do the medical exam, I want to do stormwater septic. Of course, we only do a couple. Well, guess what their biggest concern was?
Insurance.
So you would think that that would correlate into more stormwater drainage. I went to the thing, to the legislative thing, and West Marino briefed. I'd only been on the board, I don't even think, 10 days, I don't know, but just to get to your point, our primary focus was insurance rates. You would think that should correlate, and I do think the county is taking stormwater drainage more seriously. I bring it up every meeting with Joy, I'll be honest with you, everyone, so.
I know you do. You're a trooper. I appreciate it. But Santa Rosa County asked for the same thing, insurance. It's real simple formula. High risk equals high insurance. Low risk equals lower insurance. If you don't fix the flooding problems that we're having, and it's a real simple plan. You can go on flooddefenders.org. It tells you what you need to do. It tells you the flooding problems and the solutions. It's plan, protect, invest, and maintain. To protect is having good codes and good flood maps. FEMA don't have good flood maps. Santa Rosa County did adopt their new flood maps. Do you know Escambia County has not adopted the new flood maps? You know why they haven't adopted the new flood maps? Well, about every 10 years they update their flood insurance rate maps. And it actually hit during COVID. The preliminary maps were done, I believe, in 2017. Yeah, 2017. Well, they have to go through a public hearing process, and they have to vet it with the public. Well, Bristol Park, which is in District 5, 160 people flooded in April 2014. 100 of them flooded in Hurricane Sally. And they don't even have the FEMA flood maps going up the hill to cover these 160 people that flooded. Their maps are wrong. So I had a couple of residents get on, they did it through Zoom meetings instead of having the actual public meetings. And what they did is they utilized the water management district to do FEMA's job for them. So I guess that's how they set it up. But they hired engineering firms to remodel in specific areas. The county was involved in the original meetings where we pointed out problem neighborhoods. You know, the county's done 11 Mile Creek Drainage Basin Study 3 times. 3 times. And I had a meeting with the engineers with the Water Management District, and I says, look, your maps do not reflect the reality of flooding. They just don't do it. That Bristol Park's a fine example. Windrose is a fine example. Matter of fact, Dee's property is in a flood zone now, and the new maps show it going out of a flood zone. What kind? I don't understand it. You know, and I told the Water Management District, I says, look, the county's got basin studies. You need to get them. I sent them to them before. They didn't use them. Well,
Chris, when we were working together, after Ivan,
mm-hmm.
it was 2006, 2010.
Yes, sir.
We changed the freeboard requirement. Did that impact any things like
Yes, I think we went for building codes, the finished floor elevations in flood zone, everything's has a flood zone. There's a flood hazard zone, flood AE. X is not a flood hazard, but an AE zone is a flood hazard zone. I think we went 3 foot above the base elevation. That helps.
Did it show on the map? Does it reflect on the flood map?
Well, see, that's part of your community rating system that FEMA has. If you, the maps are still the same. They map them using a 100-year flood. Do you know when flood insurance maps were originally set up, flood insurance rate maps were originally set up, there was a debate between doing a 500-year storm event and a 100-year storm event? Well, you know why I went 100-year.
That's all they can remember.
Well, no. Well, you do have development interest, and I understand that. You know, that's one of the things with our land development code. Developers want to develop every bit piece of land they have. I mean, that's their job. They make money off of it. You know, preserving wetlands is important. I think our governor just passed major legislation on conserving wetlands. A lot of it's going to the Everglades, but some of it will trickle up this way. The American Flood Coalition, I think it was House or Senate Bill 19, I can't remember. I got it written down. I'll look it up. But they did flood resilience, called Florida for Flood Resilience Grant Program. Municipal Comparison for Resilience Flood Grant Program. That was the $640 million in flood resilience legislation that was passed in March of 2021. That's $100 million a year for the next 5 years that you can get a grant through DEP. Now, there's strings attached to those grants, but the Panhandle, they only got $37.5 million out of that money. Escambia County got $1.28 million for 4 projects with a $1.58 million match. The Panhandle got 9% of this big old pot of money. 9%. Why? Why did all the money go to South Florida? Because they got a better plan down there. They invest better down there. They have better codes. In this region, we have the highest annual rainfall in the nation. And one might think that, Commissioner Bergosh, if flooding is the #1 problem, why ain't it the #1 priority? You have a SWAT plan. Why not have a large drainage division like you have a traffic and transportation operations